Broadcasting live from the Business RadioX studios in Woodstock, Georgia, it's time for Cherokee Business Radio. Now, here's your host.
Welcome to another exciting and informative edition of Cherokee Business Radio. Stone Payton here with you this morning. And today's episode is brought to you in part by our community partner program, the Business RadioX Main Street Warriors, defending capitalism, promoting small business, and supporting our local community. For more information, go to mainstreetwarriors.org. And a special note of thanks to our title sponsor for the Cherokee chapter of Main Street Warriors, Diesel David Inc. Please go check them out at dieseldavid.com. You guys are in for a real treat this morning. Please join me in welcoming back to the Business RadioX microphone with the bell curve of life, Mr. Farrell Middleton. How are you, man?
Stone, I am doing great. It's January again, and I get to be here with you today, and I love it. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure. You're looking good. You're sounding good. I know you've got a lot going on. I'd like to dive into some of those activities. But before we go there, let's remind our listeners of who you are and what you're out there trying to do for folks, man.
All right, excellent. Well, very quickly on the personal side of things, I hit the big 6-0 last year. Very exciting birthday. But no, lifelong Georgian, grew up in Savannah, been in Atlanta for a long time, married 38 years now, father of two now married daughters. Our last one got married about 10 days ago. And we're grandparents now. My oldest daughter has a 9-month-old grandson that lives here in Atlanta. We're so thrilled with that. Our personal life is absolutely fantastic. It's great right now. Yeah.
Well, good.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about the work, man. What are you guys doing?
Okay. Basically with the bell curve of life, I have been doing this for close to 3 years now. I was a former home builder, left that a couple of years ago to pursue my long-awaited second career as a teacher, speaker, and now soon to be author. We'll talk about that in a minute. But my goal and mission is to add value by helping individuals become A-level performers and helping business owners and leaders create A-level environments. And if both of those can be attained, success will follow and failure will be rare. That's what I'm focused on.
And you were really doing this, pursuing this in your own way in your career well before you made the transition to going out and coaching. I mean, you were doing this every day as part of your work. Yeah.
I actually was. Yeah. This was just what I was doing for a long time. I was kind of a high-level guy in the home building companies I worked for. I was a high-volume guy, but I had a lot of responsibility, and I tried as hard as I could to be an A performer, help others be A performers, and create an A environment that everybody could succeed in. So I tried hard. Looking back, I probably could have done a little bit better, but that's why I want to help people do it now.
So in your experience, where's the low-hanging fruit early on in a conversation? You go into an organization or you're working with an individual. Yeah. Are there some patterns and you're like, yeah, I don't know what else we're going to be doing to help these folks or this person, but I'm almost certain we're going to be looking at this, and this.
Yeah, what I've got is I've developed with the A performer and A environment material some traits of A performers, and they include attitude, relationship building, communication skills, and a few other things. And then I have also created a blueprint for an A environment, and it includes vision, leadership, structure, relationships, and a few other items as well. So that starts a conversation. But one big thing that I'm running into, and I don't think I can trademark this phrase, but I call it internal customer service. And that relates to how well your internal associates and your external partners, those that help you provide your product to the marketplace every day. I was a home builder. I needed them. Suppliers and subcontractors and closing attorneys. I had to have them perform every day. So they're the external partners. So if you can have your associates and external partners working in a good collaborative way to get your product or service to the marketplace, that's internal customer service. And I firmly believe that until you have good internal customer service, you will struggle to provide external customer service to your final customers. So those are a couple of points that I start to have conversation with. And when we get into that, the conversation just starts flowing pretty easily. Because everybody's got some challenges with it. Everybody does.
Well, I'm sure they do. And as an entrepreneur myself, I'm a managing partner of a pretty successful media firm, and it's easy in the chaos and with new client development and all that to sort of neglect that a little bit, and it just sort of builds on itself right?
It
So
can.
good.
Yeah, and especially in the larger companies. Let's be clear. I worked with small companies. I worked with private companies, publicly held companies as well over the years. I had a 36-year career in home building here in Atlanta. Very successful, just ready to move on. But the larger the company gets, the easier it is for everybody to get into what we'll call the silo effect. And you get into tunnel vision where you just focus on what am I supposed to do today? And a lot of people don't really realize the impact that their performance has on their coworkers. You know, people wearing the same hat, you know, or the same name on the logo shirt or whatever. It's amazing what I'm finding, and what I found in my career as well is that inside large home building companies, for example, people just don't realize what impact they have on their coworkers. And it's really amazing. And I can help with that.
So
it's not that hard. You just got to pay attention to it.
You're like 3 years plus into this.
Almost 3 years.
Almost 3 years.
3 years in May, and to this full time. And so that's how long I've been doing it. Yeah.
So have you found yourself gravitating to a certain type of organization or an industry, or pretty agnostic in that regard?
Pretty agnostic, but I'd have to say that a lot of my contacts are in the home building industry here in Atlanta.
That makes sense.
Yeah, 36 years, same city, same industry. I know a lot of people, and a lot of my clients are in that arena, but I've got other clients as well. I've done some work with, for example, an oral surgeon firm. Did some work with the Georgia State Golf Association. So I've got a variety of things. And what I like to say, I have to be careful about this, getting into the, anti-marketing stuff and that kind of thing. Stone, I think I can help anybody. My material is what I call universal. The concepts it's practical stuff. I'm a practical guy with practical experience, and I want to share that with as many people as I can. And it's just, there's no big secret to it. It's just a matter of focusing on it. You know, getting exposed to it and focusing on it.
Yeah. Well, and I'm sure some, if not all, of the key principles are timeless and universal, like you say. And then maybe even beyond that, maybe there also is some additional value in objective outside perspective that's not buried or immersed in an industry, to kind of have a different lens on things. You could probably bring some stuff to the table that they just haven't thought of. Just like a guy who runs a surfboard company might really help a software firm see something different, right?
Absolutely. We'll call that kind of some cross information, if you will. I just made up that term.
There you go. Coin that. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah. But no, you're absolutely right. It's that the outside perspective. And what I can liken that to is, we all know anybody that has children. If you're trying to parent your children and give them guidance and advice, and they don't pay attention to you, but then they have an athletic coach that says the same thing. They say, Dad, guess what Coach Joey told me today? And I'm like, well, I've been telling you that for years.
Yeah.
For some reason, Stone, and I'm I don't know, I'm a party to this as well. The outside source sometimes just carries more influence in delivering a message. And that's okay. Maybe it's the familiarity thing with everybody seeing everybody every day, and like, oh, I've heard that guy talk before or whatever. Somebody outside comes in and it just resonates differently. Yeah. It just does. And it's a fascinating phenomenon, but it's real, and it does happen. And I've experienced that with a lot of my clients. It's great.
So day to day, what is the mechanism for the work? Is it a lot of one-on-one work? Is it some group work? Is it course work? Is it conversation?
It's one-on-one. I do one-on-one private mentoring. I've got a few of those clients now, and I've got some of those that are out of state. So I do that virtually. Now it's the way the world works these days. I do love in person though. Yeah. In person, there's just nothing like in person. Let's be very clear. Right. But I do the individual stuff. And then I do small group of, let's say, 8 to 12 people, which is really my wheelhouse. I was with a group of folks yesterday. There were 11 people in the room, and it was fantastic. I did a group last week. There were 7. And so that's a really good thing, because the group interaction is where the real value can come in. All I do is get the conversation going.
Yeah.
And I'll lob some grenades here and there and, just get the conversation going. But then everybody participates at their own comfort level. And what I'm finding is that people are learning as much, if not more, from each other as they are from me. And that's where the real magic can happen. It's fascinating.
Well, that's an interesting point. There's as much value from the peer-to-peer interaction as opposed to you're the guru at the top of the hill just laying all the wisdom down. You're facilitating that process, but there's a lot of peer-to-peer learning
yeah,
having.
a lot of it. That's really what I really like to do. And look, I could get up there. You know me now. I can get up and talk for 60 or 90 minutes without a problem at all, without even taking a breath or a sip of water. But that would be boring. I tell people, if I'm going to do that, you're going to go jump off the roof here pretty quick. So I like to get them involved in it because they engage and they're learning as well. So that's a big part of it. But the other thing is that I'm starting to do some public speaking, and I have been the keynote speaker for, let's say, some local business association lunches. I did one last week, and I've got 2 more next week in Cobb County. And so that's an audience generally of anywhere from 50 to 100. And I've got my message, my A Performer, A Environment message, and getting some good feedback on that. So I've got a variety of ways that my program is structured and for me to get my message out there to anybody that wants to listen to me.
Now, when you first started doing the speaking, was that nerve-wracking for you at all? I know it can be for some people, or did it come pretty easy?
It came, I guess, pretty easily. I've always had a comfort level in public speaking. I used to read in church as a child. I got tapped on the shoulder every once in a while to do that. And then I won an oratorical contest at the age of 12.
Oh, wow.
Believe it or not. And so I did that. So I've always been comfortable, but I need to hone my skills like everybody does. My first one, I filmed it. Oh my goodness, it was cringeworthy when I went back and looked at it.
And video is a very unforgiving medium.
It is really, you can't go back and I'm sure he could edit it, but I said, give me the raw footage. I got to have it. So I'm like, oh my goodness. But, basically I've just gotten better like we all do. You know, we all get better at our craft, and I'm getting more comfortable with it. But, I do, what I'll call single event sessions, which is like a lunch and learn or a staff meeting or an offsite retreat for companies. Like I said, I do the public speaking engagements. I'm going to be doing a lot more of that because I've got a strong message that I want to get out there to as many people as I can. And the bigger the audience, the better for the message to get out there. So that's where I am with it.
That's probably a great part of your marketing mix, right? To get the message out. And I mean, you're serving whether someone writes you a check or not. So that's got to feel good. Yep. But I would think as you continue to do that, it just, more and more people know what you're doing and what you're about. What was the transition like? Because you were coming from a corporate world where presumably you made a comfortable living, you knew your stuff, you had it figured out, and then all of a sudden, well, I'm a little, I won't ask you to go into detail, but I'm a little bit interested in the conversation with your wife, like, oh honey, by the way, I'm going to go do this. But what was the transition like going from that world? That had to be a little scary. Yeah?
It was a lot scary.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, let's be very clear. And my wife, yes, that conversation took place, and she's like, have you lost your mind? And the answer was, no, I have not. But basically, like I said, I was had that my primary career for 36 years. It was a very good career, and I provided a very good service to society. I was a home builder here in Atlanta. But my children are grown now, as I mentioned, and I was 57 at the time. I've always wanted to be a teacher of sorts in my second career. It's been a lifelong desire. And I started really working on this program, noodling it in my head about 10 years ago. And I've just been continuing to develop it. And so, yes, it was a very scary transition. But, Stone, I was 57 at the time. I have a lot of professional years left. I was just ready to focus differently and provide a different service to people. And I heard something really, really important that resonated with me. I had the pleasure of hearing a public speaker about last year, and he said, if you're moving into your second career of speaking or teaching or whatever, he said, you may have had a successful career in career number one. What I want you to do now is be significant. And I am on a path to being significant in my second career. That's really what I wanted. I've got an enormous passion for this. I really do.
I can tell. I mean, it's I can see it in your eyes. Everybody can hear it in your voice. So at this point, and if I ask you this again next year, the answer may be different, but what are you finding the most rewarding right now? What's the most fun about it for you these days?
I think the fun part I get out of it is when I do have the chance to engage with the small groups of, let's say, 8 to 12 people, give or take.
Right.
When we conclude the session, I always go around the table. The last 5 or 10 minutes is, how have I helped you today?
Oh, wow.
And I get feedback immediately. And they're like, man, well, I tell you what, let me tell you what I got out of this today and what I'm going to do with it. That is so rewarding. That's what teachers do. They want people to learn and grow and develop and all those other phrases and words that we put to it. but that's where the real value comes in. I got to do that yesterday. For example, yesterday I was with the Tommy Nobis Center.
Oh, yeah.
And they help disadvantaged people with jobs. I was in front of one they called a cohort. And this is the third time I've done it with Tommy Nobis Center, and it was fantastic. I had these young adults who have challenges, and I helped them yesterday. Boy, that felt good. Oh, my gosh, that felt so good. Yeah.
So as you continue to refine your approaches, refine your practice, it makes sense to me that you're probably parallel to that, crafting the Farrell Middleton bell curve methodology, something that would be repeatable and come with transferable processes and tools. Any designs on replicating yourself down the line?
Possibly so. I really want to consider that, but right now I am what I've heard is an individual contributor.
Okay.
So
right.
yeah, it's me. And the part of it with what I do is a lot of this comes from my heart. And it's my life, my being alive for 60 years is the fundamental basis of the program. And I can and I tell my story when it makes sense for me to tell my story to get the conversation going. And so, yes, that is on the radar screen. But for right now, I'm just focusing on what I can do to get my message out, individually, I guess, by myself at this point in time. But yeah, I'd like to be able to repeat it at some point, but I've got to make sure that the quality experience is going to be there. I'm about quality and value, not quantity and speed. And that's where the real growth can happen. Quality and value is what I want to do.
And now you have a new outlet for expressing some of this. You've written a book. Mm-hmm. I want to hear all about the book, and I'd like to learn more about what's in it and how to best leverage the book. But what compelled you to write it in the first place? Because knowing you, it wasn't just for the marketing value. There's more to it. Why did you write this thing?
Well, again, to get my message out, it's very important material for me, and it is my A Performer, A Environment material, and it has become what is called the signature material of my program. I'm focusing on this, a lot of really good value there, but that same speaker I mentioned a few minutes ago that told me about being successful then significant, in that same presentation, somebody asked him, what would you have done differently or better or whatever? And he said, me and my contemporaries, which are other public speakers, he said, we would have written our first book much sooner. And that registered in my head. I'm like, okay, I got to get to work. And so I did, and I've gone the hybrid publishing route, but it's going to be a really good book. It's practical information. It's going to be an easy read. I've learned a lot about the psychology of reading as I've gone through the writing process with my publisher, and things like structuring the pages and things like that. I won't get into all those details, but it's going to be easy on the eyes to read this book, to start with that.
So did you find, in the experience of writing the book, did you find that some of it came together like super easy, slam dunk, knocked out a bunch of pages, and then other times you just kind of stalled and you can't quite figure it? Like, did some stuff come together a lot easier than others?
Oh, absolutely. It sure did. And sometimes I was just sitting at my breakfast room table at 6:00 on a Sunday morning thinking, I got to write something. And finally I would get there. And again, going this route with the publisher, I would just say, okay, I'm just going to throw stuff on a page and get it to him. And then he would kind of craft around it and that kind of thing. So that was very, but some just flowed off. I mean, some I couldn't type fast enough getting thoughts out of my head, of course. And then others, I'm sitting there like, do. Yeah, it exists for everybody that writes a book. So yeah.
And not unlike speaking, but you're kind of laying your heart out there, in at least for an inner circle at first, to critique it, to look at it, to fix it, and then, when you release it, you're putting your heart out on the table for the world, right?
Yeah, it's there. But one thing I've heard as well, and I've learned a lot about this in the last couple of years, is don't wait for perfect. If you wait for perfect, you'll never do anything. So I'm sure, when I look back at it and get some reviews on it, they're going to say, hey, you could have done X, Y, or Z. I'm expecting all of that.
Right.
I hope to get it. And actually, it's interesting. This book was not my first idea for the first book I wanted to write.
Huh.
Yeah, this just kind of came in secondarily. So I've still got that other material ready for my second book once this one hits the shelves, and it goes from there. So, but it was it took about 6 months overall, a daunting task, but extremely well worth it. I'm very proud of it. Very proud.
So how did you decide to structure the book? Is it small chapters? Is it, walk us through the structure.
It is. It's two main sections. One, it starts with a performer, and that's the individual side of things. Like I mentioned, with attitude, relationship building. A big one I've got is wake up frame of mind. Huge topic. Your day starts when you pull your head up off your pillow, and it'll set the tone for the day. Other things will come into play. But anyway, I've gotten really good out of that. But I've got 11 chapters on a performer. And then I've got 12 chapters on a environment. Book is going to be about 200 pages long, but like I said, it's going to be an easy read. The chapters are 8 to 10 pages long, and I've learned a lot about the psychology of reading from my publisher. His name is Tom. And one of the things is, and I didn't realize this until I started thinking about it, when I pick up a book and read it, if it's getting to be 8:30 or 9 o'clock at night, when I finish a chapter, the first thing I do is look at the index to see how long the next chapter is. Mm-hmm. And if it's too long for that style of book, I'll shut the book and pick it up again in a couple of days. Oh, wow. And I don't know if other people do that or not, but that's what I do. And my publisher, he was like, yeah, people do that all the time. So it's going to be nice short chapters, and they all have some really good content in them. And I've got an evaluation form at the end of each section where you can rate yourself on a scale of 1 to 5 for all of the characteristics we talk about. And it's a very simple one. Webster's Thesaurus is a wonderful resource. My very complicated rating scale is 1 through 5. Poor, moderate, satisfactory, superior, and outstanding. Rate yourself on each of the topics that I present there. And if you got some 2s and 3s, work on the 2s and 3s. If you got some 4s and 5s, they probably don't need attention at this point in time. So I want people to spend their time well and work on the things that they decide they want to work on to make their life better.
We were talking about the value of peer-to-peer learning earlier. The way you've structured this book and the kind of content that you chose to focus on strikes me as it could be a really strong catalyst for a peer learning environment too. Like, I could sit and read the book and that would be valuable, but then to turn around either chapter at a time or the whole thing and then come into a group and then use different chapters as a catalyst for a peer-to-peer conversation. Is that accurate? Is that a strong way to use it?
It is. And in fact, I'm going to be a member of a book club here locally. I had to pause it late last year and early this year, but my book is going to be the book of focus when we start in March.
Oh.
Yeah, so I'm going to be in the room as the author. It's going to be a little bit awkward, but the other folks in the room, they're like, man, no, this is great. So yes, it would be excellent for book. Yeah, this is get a good individual read, but a group read as well, especially with people in the same company. And I'm hopeful I'm going to get, copies of the book to some CEOs that I know. And I'm going to say, hey, if you see value in here, please recommend it to your internal associates and your external partners. And the external partner thing, I really want to touch on that for a second. It's very important because they can make your life in business really good or really poor. So you want them to be good performers and have a good environment. This can help them do that. They will in turn provide better products and services to you as an external partner. And so that's what I'm hoping to do. Again, it's just, that organic messaging, I guess, is the right way to say it. Yeah. I want to get it in as many hands as I can, and hopefully they'll like it and they'll recommend it to everybody they know. That's what I want to do.
So as you know, a lot of our listenership, a lot of folks who tap in to listen to our content are also in the professional services arena, some of them very niche, some of them broader. If someone is out there that fits that description and they're contemplating the idea of writing a book, tips, hard lessons learned, what advice would you share with them? Well,
from what I understand, there are 3 ways to publish a book. Number 1 is self-publishing. And again, with the world these days, doing a lot of stuff on your own is really good. But for me, I had no interest in learning how to publish a book. And a lot of people, I know a lot of people that have published their own books and they do a great job with it. That just wasn't for me at that point in time. The hybrid publishing route, which is where I went, where all the content is mine, but he helped me, and there's going to be a royalty split, with the money when it comes down to it. And then there's the traditional publishing route with like a Random House type of a publishing, where it's a big publishing outfit. And I heard good, bad, and indifferent things about all 3 of those choices. And for me, the hybrid route was the best one because I didn't know how to write a book. I've got good content, but putting it in the right way to structure it in a book, I just needed help with that. It's not my expertise. And I partnered with somebody. I'm very pleased with our results so far. So that's why I wanted to go that route. And so it was for me, but investigate it. Talk to people that have published their own books. Talk to people that have done the hybrid, and talk to people that have done the full publishing route, and get some ideas. And I interviewed him, and I spoke with 3 or 4 other publishing outfits, and I decided on him. Just liked him, and it's worked out very well. And he's out of state. He's in Virginia. The world is electronic these days. Yeah. Doesn't matter where they are.
The world is a smaller place in a lot of respects, isn't it?
Oh, it sure is. It sure is. Yeah. Yeah. So, but anyway, it's very exciting. It's been a task that's well worth it. And again, the title of the book it's very simple: A Performer, A Environment. It's real easy to remember. It
is. I love it. I feel like that title has some real legs, and obviously the work is substantive. So, related question. I'm trying to put myself I never worked in the corporate. I was unhireable. I never worked in the corporate environment.
Okay.
But I'm trying to envision that man or woman in the corporate environment. Maybe they're at IBM, or maybe, they've had a very successful career. They want to take some of what they've learned in their career, apply it to a niche or to a broader community. Tips, comments on making that transition and going out on your own and kind of doing your own thing for that significant chapter of your life.
Yeah. 3 years into this, my advice would be make sure you're passionate about it and make sure that you're committed to it. And you do have to get the support of those around you. And when I was considering this idea, I reached out to about 35 or 40, either personal friends or professional associates that I've, again, my relationships go back over 30 years with some people here in Atlanta home building, and confidant type stuff. And I ran the concept by them, and I got enough good feedback where people said, yeah, I think you're on the right track here. So you got to have some feedback from some folks. It's very, very important, but you just have to decide if it's right for you at that point in time. For me, my children were grown. The financial heavy lifting was done. They were both out of college at that point in time. Yeah. My wife and I, we had sold the big house, and we live in a townhouse now. It's me and my wife and a dog. Oh, it's so easy. Oh my, I recommend that to everybody. It is so easy. So my life is very uncomplicated at this point in time. And I was at a point in my professional career, and I'm sure a lot of people are out there as well. I was wound pretty tight. Okay. My last few years, I was in the pressure cooker. Everybody is, or whatever. And fortunately for me, I had worked hard enough for those prior 36 years to where I put myself in a position where I could make this transition. It's been scary. It hadn't gone, as quickly as I wanted it to. I haven't had as many clients as I want, all that stuff.
Sure.
And everybody's going to run into that. And another bit of advice: when you do this, be prepared that where you think you're going to get business and contacts, you won't. And you'll get random stuff from places you never expected.
Wow.
And I've talked to other business owners that have done that, and they're like, yeah, I thought it was going to be a layup with a bunch of people, and it wasn't. And then all of a sudden you get these random connections, and like, man, I want your service as fast as I can get it. So so that's another bit of advice. Just be prepared for a lot of ups and downs and that kind of thing. But if you're committed to it, we live in a society where this works. And you can do it. So I suggest that to everybody.
All right. So what's the best way for our listeners to stay connected, tap into your work? Because you generate a tremendous amount of thought leadership and tips and things to think about. What's the best way for them to kind of get in your circle?
Okay, get in my circle. My cell phone number, I love this, is 678-618-2024. My website is thebellcurveoflife.com. And my email address is farrell@thebellcurveoflife.com. And I have one other thing on the audience for my book, if you don't mind.
Oh, please.
Yeah. I've got 2 audiences for my book. Go big or go home, Stone, right? Every working professional should read this book, especially owners, directors, and managers. And then my next audience is any young adult who has completed their education by earning either a diploma, a certificate, or a degree, and are ready to enter the professional world. This is the first book they should read. It'll set the stage for them to be able to enter the workplace in a productive fashion, and their career will just flourish if they read this book.
Well, congratulations
you.
on the momentum, man. You're doing incredible work. Thanks for coming by and visiting with us. It's always a pleasure. You always have so much to offer, and it's a delight. The enthusiasm, the vigor. You are really having a genuine impact on so many, and it's not going to stop. It's only going to grow from here, man.
I hope so. That's right. I'm loving what I'm doing, and I cannot thank you enough. This is the third time I've been with you. This is why I look forward to this every January. It is a great way for me to start my year. I love it. Thank you so much.
Absolutely my pleasure. All right. Until next time, this is Stone Payton for our guest today, Farrell Middleton with the Bell Curve of Life, and everyone here at the Business RadioX family saying we'll see you again on Cherokee Business Radio.